The Demon King was born into this kingdom, but his transformation into malice created the horror you see now.
The history of the royal family of Hyrule is also the history of Calamity Ganon.
We selected 4 skilled individuals from across Hyrule and tasked them with the duty of piloting the divine beasts.
It was written that Calamity Ganon once adopted the form of a Gerudo.
The signs of a resurrection of Calamity Ganon are clear.
Calamity Ganon, a long-forgotten ancient evil that once took the form of the Gerudo king Ganondorf. But the hatred felt towards the royal family and those who sealed him would accumulate and result in the birth of the Calamity. No one knows just how powerful this being was, as he would be sealed away by the hero and princess, with the assistance of the Sheikah technology. Stories of this ancient evil would fade into legends and fairy tales, but as time passed, the danger of this entity would return in the form of a prophecy. While he would soon return and be defeated again, it came at a cost of thousands of lives, as well as the 4 champions in Cain, though peace would finally be restored to the kingdom. Or was it? Because from what we found out over on Zeltik's channel, it's possible that this rabbit hole goes down deeper. We all assumed the hand on Ganon was only sealing him away, but what if the truth is much more horrifying? With energy seemingly going away from the corpse, some of which being Gerudo script. Is this Ganon's spirit? And if so, why is it being pulled away from him? If it hasn't been obvious yet, this is indeed the second part of a massive theory behind what we see in the trailer and how it ties into Breath of the Wild as a whole. So make sure to check out part 1 on Zeltik's channel. Don't worry, this video isn't going anywhere.
The strangest thing about this Ganondorf is how he appears in the sequel's trailer. We'll proceed with the assumption that this is the former Gerudo king. Given all the information we have, it's the most logical answer. In previous games, any clash with Ganon resulted in his defeat, along with being sealed away, bringing peace to Hyrule until his inevitable return. But given his state in the sequel's trailer, something seems extremely off about him. He does appear to have some sort of seal on him, as a hand is presumably holding him down. However, when we look at one of the in-game quotes, we get an idea of just how long he's been like this.
The history of the royal family of Hyrule is also the history of Calamity Ganon.
There's an implication that the birth of Calamity Ganon has to do with the actions of the royal family. It's possible that they made a decision to both seal and keep Ganondorf's body preserved under the castle. Because of his constraints, he was forced to use his malice to create the entity known as Calamity Ganon, but page 401 of Masterworks helps paint a clearer picture on this compelling puzzle. According to Gerudo records, there has not been another male Gerudo leader since the king who became the Calamity. There's only one explanation. This Ganondorf has been kept alive through mummification since ancient times, a body that's been trapped in the caves under Hyrule Castle for 10,000 years. But the question is, why? What motive does the royal family have in keeping him alive? The answer for that is presented to us within the trailer. If the green energy we see is indeed his spirit, and it's going away from the body, then it's being extracted for a certain purpose. His appearance backs this up, as his life force has been sucked away for thousands of years, becoming the horrific, shrunken sight he is now. Hyrule was blossoming as a highly advanced civilization 10,000 years ago, thanks to their technological prowess. It led to the creation of the Sheikah towers, shrines, and divine beasts, all thanks to an ancient energy, the origins of which remain an enigma.
Until today. Is Ganondorf's spirit the source of ancient energy? It sounds crazy, until you dig deeper into the lore of the first game. Chronologically, it makes sense, as the creation of Sheikah technology would have occurred not long after Ganondorf was initially sealed. But as seen in the game, all Sheikah technology is blue. Masterworks even describes ancient energy as a blue viscous liquid. How can spirit energy, which takes on a greenish color, be the ancient energy seen in the game? One possibility comes from the trailer of the sequel. There are several rocks which look like a purer form of luminous stone. The in-game description for these stones states that the pale blue glow is believed to be the souls of the dead. And if you increase the contrast of the image, it is revealed that the bottom is a bluish color, which slowly transitions to green at the top. Sort of like a converter. And while that might be a coincidence, we already have an example in the game of Life Force being used to power Sheikah technology, as Link is able to wield the one-hit obliterator, but at the cost of his hearts. Masterworks also goes as far as to mention specific locations rich in ancient energy. According to the chart on page 405, pools of ancient energy can be found in 3 areas: East Necluda, Deep Akala, and beneath Hyrule Castle. How could this huge quantity of ancient energy go unnoticed in the first game? Yet it's directly underneath the castle. But that's one of 3 locations rich in energy. If we assume that the one below Hyrule Castle is directly linked to Ganon's spirit energy, how do we explain the other ones found? Surprisingly, players have seen these 2 sources of ancient energy before. They are none other than the ancient furnaces, as both of them reside in the same locations. And we know that they have both burned for 10,000 years from one of the tips on the loading screen. Robbie gives us more information about these furnaces when you speak with him at the lab within Akala. An ancient furnace can be simply described as a singular place that gathers massive amounts of energy. Gathers, as in the energy is pulled from somewhere else and burned. The question is, where?
Within the sequel's trailer, there's a shot of Malice shooting up to an oddly shaped structure on the ceiling. It kind of resembles an upside down ancient furnace, as well as a bunch of pipe-like objects sticking out of the structure. After closer inspection of the furnaces in Akala and Necluda, you can see pipes attached to the bases of them, all of which share the exact same shape as the ones in the ceiling chamber. The ancient energy is stored in the top structure and distributed via the pipe system to the technology and the 2 ancient furnaces. They were able to burn for 10,000 years because their fuel was sealed under Hyrule Castle for the same amount of time. But what about the flames that burn outside of the labs? They aren't connected to the fuel source and yet they never go out. Technically, that's wrong, as both Pura and Robbie clearly state that these flames have to occasionally be relit, but both stop lighting the furnace because of personal reasons. Pura is too embarrassed to be seen, and Robbie had gotten too old. And since all of the Sheikah technology comes from the ground, the idea that it's powered by a source beneath the surface isn't too far-fetched. But there are 2 issues with this: the Divine Beasts and the Guardians. Both are mobile and therefore must get their power from another source. On the tapestry we can see the Sheikah slate being created, as well as some strange gem that we never see in the game. Page 367 of Masterworks tells us that this is most likely what powers this ancient relic, kind of like a supercharged battery. The Guardians could all be powered by a similar source. Slaying these autonomous machines in the overworld will occasionally reward the player with an ancient core, or even a giant ancient core. The description of this rare item even says that the core is a giant energy crystal made using lost ancient technology. Sounds similar to the item that powers the Sheikah slate. When you look at the item in question, it appears to be a container holding some sort of energy that's flowing inside, not unlike Malice. And it's not the color blue either.
This leaves one thing: the Divine Beasts. They can't be supplied with ancient energy from the ground, and the thought of a giant ancient core powering these mechanical beasts is not very likely. We know that each one has 5 terminals, as well as a main control unit. Some might not know this, but the main control units are the exact same thing as an ancient furnace. Technically, it could be the Sheikah slate powering them, as Masterworks describes Link using a slate on the terminals as feeding it with ancient energy. But what about before that? Well, here's a question for you. Why does each Divine Beast even need a champion to pilot it? Because the thing that is powering them all is spirit energy. Not Ganondorf's spirit energy, but that of the pilots. The Divine Beasts don't have physical controls, but what if each one was controlled mentally? Is that why Daruk was the only one who struggled in controlling it? Was he the one with the weakest mind? In fact, why were the champions trapped in their respective Divine Beasts even after being slain by the Blights? Unless they had a direct connection to the machines as their power sources. On the topic of that, Calamity Ganon corrupting the technology makes a lot more sense. It's not like the Guardians were reprogrammed. Their power source simply changed from ancient energy to malice, and Masterworks implies the exact same thing. Relics that are functioning normally glow either pale blue or orange. However, those corrupted by Calamity Ganon glow pink, which perhaps indicates that malice has flooded their systems in place of ancient energy. Though like the ancient furnaces, the main control units also have pipes going into the ground. It implies that the energy is gathered from somewhere else. So does that debunk the spirit energy theory? Well, one difference between the two is the lack of a flame. Similar to the one above Hyrule Castle, it's possible that the spirit energy is stored in the main control unit and distributed via pipes to the 5 terminals.
This theory would explain how Ganon was able to sense the hero awakening, as Masterworks also states, it's possible that the Great Plateau Tower sent a signal to a central control unit within Hyrule Castle, which in turn transmitted a signal to all of the towers and shrines throughout the land, activating them all at once. By using his Sheikah Slate to activate the Great Plateau Tower, the hero was able to access the shrines and towers, but also gave away his position to the Calamity Ganon. However, the book is also implying that Hyrule Castle has its own central control unit. Could the structure on the ceiling within the trailer be that very thing? If we wanted to go deeper, it's possible that both the Shrine of Resurrection and the 5th Divine Beast are powered by the spirit energy of Monk Mazkoshia. It wouldn't sound too crazy given how powerful this Sheikah monk is after 10,000 years. If anything, this all would prove how powerful Ganondorf's spirit really is. Most likely because he was once the wielder of the Triforce of Power. His Calamity form thousands of years ago must have truly been a terrifying sight.
And if there is a main control unit within the castle, it's possible that it resides just under the laboratory. For some unexplained reason, Ganon chose to take control of it. We know it isn't the default color since in Masterworks it is the familiar pale blue you find on shrines. A commenter from one of my live streams also pointed out that, like the shrines, there may be an entrance to the lab through an elevator. It's true that the floor consists of a circular pattern, with a Sheikah eye in the middle, and the mines of the castle may hint at the ceiling chamber being nearby, as some areas are filled with luminous stones, similar to what is seen from the trailer. But what about the orange color on the technology such as towers and shrines? Well, not much is known aside from the fact that it represents technology that is in a standby mode. Unfortunately, that's all the information that we could find. With all the evidence provided, it's very possible that the power used to oppose the Calamity 10,000 years ago originated from the Gerudo King himself. By having Ganon suffer an eternal death, the royal family was responsible for the creation of the Calamity Ganon, which would lead to the deaths of thousands of innocent lives and the rebirth of the Demon King. Ganondorf was like a nuclear reactor, the Calamity a nuclear meltdown, and Malice the radiation.